Welcome back to the channel, where every story comes with a powerful lesson. Today's tale takes place right outside Buckingham Palace. And trust me, you won't believe how one small action spiraled into a life-changing experience. But before we begin, let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from right now? We love seeing our global community grow. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because tomorrow we're dropping another unforgettable story you won't want to miss. Now, get comfortable. This one's going to stay with you. The guard didn't move, but his silence taught a lesson that changed everything. It was a crisp spring afternoon in London when Logan Reed, a 17-year-old high school junior from Phoenix, Arizona, found himself standing in front of Buckingham Palace for the first time. The iron gates, the grandeur, the crowds, everything felt like a scene from a history book. Logan, known back home as the class clown, was traveling with his school on a week-long educational tour. The day had been packed with tours, trivia, and photo ops, and now the group had time to roam freely around the palace area. As Logan walked past the Queen's Guard, stoic, silent, and mounted on a magnificent black horse, he felt a strange mixture of curiosity and mischief. The guard didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He didn't even acknowledge the crowd forming around him. "He looks like a statue," Logan joked quietly to a few classmates. Someone laughed. Emboldened by the reaction, he decided to test the guard's famous composure. Pulling his phone from his pocket, Logan opened a sound effects app and selected a loud horse neigh. With a quick tap, the exaggerated sound blared from his speaker. A few tourists glanced up. The horse's ears twitched. The guard remained frozen. Logan chuckled, muttering, "Guess he's trained better than I thought." But it didn't end there. Wanting one last laugh, Logan picked up a pebble from the ground and gently tossed it, not at the guard, but near the horse's feet. The moment it hit the pavement, the guard's hand subtly shifted on the reins. His posture straightened, his head remained forward, but the silent message was clear. He noticed. What Logan didn't realize was that nearby, a concerned tourist had seen the act and flagged down palace security. Within minutes, two officers approached Logan, asking him to step aside. His classmates watched in stunned silence. His teacher rushed over, her face pale. The tone of the day had changed. This wasn't a harmless prank anymore. It was a breach of protocol. And for Logan, it was the beginning of a lesson he'd never forget. One that would take him far beyond embarrassment and into a journey of humility, service, and respect he never expected to learn on a school trip. Logan stood beside the iron gate, heart racing, as two uniformed palace security officers questioned him. His hands were clammy, his voice tight. "It was just a joke," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. One of the officers, tall and serious, replied firmly, "It may have been a joke to you, but to us, it's a security concern, especially involving the royal guard and their horse." Logan glanced at the crowd around him. Phones were out, tourists whispering, recording, some shaking their heads. This wasn't just a scolding. It was turning into a spectacle. His teacher, Mrs. Callahan, finally arrived. Her expression caught somewhere between shock and disappointment. "Logan," she said sternly, "do you understand what you've done?" He nodded, but the truth was, he didn't, not fully. What he thought was harmless fun had triggered a wave of attention he wasn't prepared for. "You're lucky the guard didn't respond physically," one officer added. "They're trained to remain composed, but they have full authority to act if they feel threatened. You crossed the line." As Logan was escorted to a side area near the barracks for further questioning, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. A woman in the crowd, dressed in business attire, was speaking firmly into a radio, pointing directly at him. Another tourist, holding a professional-looking camera, shouted, "I got the whole thing! Sending it to the BBC!" Panic set in. This was getting out of hand. Back at the school's hostel later that evening, Logan's phone lit up. A video titled "American Teen Disrespects Royal Guard's Horse at Buckingham" had already gained traction online. The comments were brutal. Strangers labeled him arrogant, entitled, ignorant. The school principal had already emailed his parents. The trip coordinator warned that he might be sent home early, pending investigation. Logan sat on his bunk, staring at the screen, replaying the moment over and over. What started as a laugh had turned into something far bigger. He didn't feel clever anymore. He felt exposed. The guard hadn't said a word, hadn't lifted a hand, and yet Logan had never felt more humbled. He knew then this wasn't going to disappear. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't supposed to. The next morning, Logan was called into a private meeting at the hostel, where Mrs. Callahan, the school's trip coordinator, sat with a senior British cultural liaison and a palace security officer. Logan expected to be handed a plane ticket home, but instead, what he got was something else entirely. "We've spoken with the palace," the officer began. "They've decided not to pursue legal action, but they want to offer you something we rarely extend, an opportunity to learn." Logan blinked, confused. "Learn what?" he asked. The liaison leaned forward. "You're going to spend the rest of your trip volunteering with the Household Cavalry Museum and Stable Unit. You'll clean tack, sweep stalls, and learn firsthand what it takes to stand guard in front of that palace." Logan's heart sank. "You want me to shovel manure?" The officer didn't smile. "No, we want you to understand what respect looks like." Later that afternoon, Logan arrived at the barracks, tucked behind the grandeur of Buckingham Palace. It wasn't a tourist attraction, it was real military ground. Inside, he was greeted by Colonel James Harrison, a retired cavalry officer with a commanding presence and a deep, calm voice. "You're the American kid who thought the guard was a statue," he said flatly. Logan stayed silent. "Good, then you'll start by scrubbing saddles. Speak when spoken to." The work was grueling. He polished leather until his hands ached, filled water troughs, and swept floors that never seemed clean. But what stung more than the labor was the silence. No smiles, no chatter. Just the cold professionalism of those who took their duty seriously. And every day, at exactly 6 a.m., the same guard from the incident would pass through the stables to prepare for his shift. His eyes never looking at Logan, but his presence heavier than words. By day 3, Logan stopped complaining. Something about the atmosphere, the discipline, the purpose, started to chip away at his defensiveness. He listened as other young guards talked about their 18-month training, the pressure of standing still under public scrutiny, and their pride in serving. These weren't just men in funny hats. They were soldiers, and Logan had mocked all of it. For the first time since arriving in London, he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about the people he disrespected, and maybe, just maybe, how to make things right. By the end of his first week at the stables, something in Logan had shifted. The days were long, the work was filthy, and no one gave him praise. Yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, he started showing up early. He double-checked the saddle straps, offered to clean up after the horses without being told, and even stayed late to reorganize storage racks. Colonel Harrison noticed, but said nothing. That silence, Logan realized, was its own kind of test. One afternoon, while hosing down the stable floor, Logan overheard 2 guards talking quietly nearby. One of them was the guard he'd mocked, the same one who had stared him down with a single, powerful glance. "That kid still here?" one asked. The guard gave the slightest nod. "He's working," was all he said. It wasn't approval, not yet, but it wasn't dismissal either, and that was enough to keep Logan going. A few days later, Colonel Harrison called Logan into his office. "There's a ceremonial event this weekend, Veterans Remembrance Service. I've spoken with the regiment. We're giving you a chance to walk with us during the Youth Flag Honor Guard." Logan's eyes widened. "You want me to be part of the ceremony?" Harrison nodded. "You've earned the right to stand beside those you once mocked. Don't waste it." The morning of the ceremony, Logan dressed carefully in the standard-issue volunteer uniform. The crowd outside Buckingham Palace was much larger than he expected. Families, veterans, school groups, and tourists lined the streets. As the national anthem played, Logan stood still, the weight of the American and British flags resting on his shoulders. He didn't fidget. He didn't smile. He stood tall, as he'd been taught. And then, across the square, he saw him, the same guard now off duty, watching from the side in a simple uniform. Their eyes met. This time, there was no shame. No fear, just quiet understanding. Logan took a deep breath. In that moment, he wasn't the kid who pulled a prank. He wasn't a clown or a tourist looking for laughs. He was someone learning the meaning of respect, one step, one task, one hard-earned moment at a time. 2 months after the ceremony, Logan was back home in Phoenix, but he wasn't the same kid who had left for London. The trip had ended, but the lesson hadn't. Something about standing in that palace courtyard, wearing the uniform, carrying that flag, it had stuck with him. When his school asked him to give a short presentation about his experience abroad, Logan surprised everyone by agreeing without hesitation. He even asked to extend it to the entire junior and senior classes. On the day of the assembly, Logan stood on the auditorium stage, hands steady, voice clear. He didn't try to be funny. He didn't crack a single joke. Instead, he shared what it felt like to be stared down by a soldier who didn't need to say a word to teach him something. He told them about the stable work, the silence, the weight of tradition, and what respect actually looks like when it's earned, not demanded. The room was silent by the time he finished. Afterward, his teacher approached him with an idea: start a service project for students who wanted to learn about international customs and civic duty. Logan agreed on the spot. With help from the school counselor and a few military families, he launched a new student-led initiative called Honor Beyond Borders, where teens partnered with local veterans to learn about service, leadership, and global respect. What started as a consequence was turning into something real. Months later, Logan received a letter with a royal seal. It was from the Household Cavalry Museum. Inside was a short message from Colonel Harrison. "We heard about the program. Keep leading. You've earned your place among those who stand tall." Logan smiled, holding the letter carefully. That summer, he returned to London, this time not as a tourist, but as a guest. He visited the same stables, greeted the same guards, and was quietly invited to observe a new cadet training day. As he stood along the fence, watching the recruits march, he felt a presence beside him. It was the guard, the one who had never spoken. This time, the guard looked at him, gave the slightest nod, and offered a rare, barely there smile. Logan returned the nod. No cameras, no applause, just mutual respect, quiet, powerful, and earned. What would you have done in Logan's place? Have you ever made a mistake that taught you a lesson you'll never forget? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from and how this story made you feel. Did it change the way you see tradition, respect, or responsibility? At the heart of this story is something many of us can relate to: the desire to be seen, the temptation to push limits, and the life-changing power of humility. Maybe you faced a moment where a bad decision turned into an unexpected turning point. Maybe someone gave you a second chance that changed everything. Let's make this comment section a space to reflect, to support, and to inspire each other. And if you believe stories like Logan's can help others understand the real meaning of growth and respect, give this video a like and share it with a friend. We read every comment, and we love hearing from viewers around the world. Your voice matters. So let us know, what does respect mean to you?